Welcome to Monk's Temple. Find a comfortable position. You don't need to sit cross-legged on the floor unless that feels natural to you. You can be in a chair, on a couch, lying down, even walking slowly somewhere quiet. The only requirement is that you give yourself permission to be here, fully, for the next stretch of time. Take a breath. Just one conscious breath. Notice the air moving in. Notice the pause. Notice the air moving out. That's all. One breath of presence. Now let's talk about something that rarely gets discussed honestly. You wake up in the morning. The alarm goes off, or maybe your body just knows it's time. Your feet hit the floor. You go through the motions. Coffee or tea, shower, clothes, out the door. You navigate traffic or public transportation. You arrive at a place where you spend most of your waking hours doing things that often feel disconnected from why you thought you came here, to this life, to this human experience. And somewhere in the middle of all that motion, there's a quiet hum of something. Not quite dissatisfaction. Not quite sadness. More like a background radiation of unease. A sense that you're supposed to be somewhere else, doing something else, being someone else. Or maybe just a feeling that this can't be all there is. You're not alone in that feeling. In fact, that feeling is one of the most universal human experiences. It crosses cultures, generations, income levels, and lifestyles. The wealthy feel it. The poor feel it. The successful feel it. The struggling feel it. It doesn't discriminate. And here's what's strange, we almost never talk about it. We talk about our problems. We talk about our plans. We talk about other people, about events, about the news, about entertainment. But that quiet hum, that sense that something's off, that stays in the background, unexamined, like furniture we've stopped noticing. A man named Siddhartha noticed it. Noticed it so deeply that it changed everything. Noticed it so completely that 26 centuries later, we're still talking about what he found when he stopped running from that feeling and turned to face it directly. His story isn't what you think. It's not a fairy tale about a prince who had everything and gave it up because he was dissatisfied with material wealth. That version exists, but it misses the depth. Siddhartha didn't leave because he was unhappy with what he had. He left because he realized that what he had, what anyone has, what anyone can get in this life, rests on a foundation that none of us examine. He had the best life his culture could offer. Palaces designed for each season. The finest foods. Entertainment on demand. Relationships. Status. A future kingdom waiting for him. By any external measure, he had won the birth lottery. He was set. And yet. That "and yet" is where the whole story lives. The human mind has a remarkable ability to normalize almost anything. Psychologists call it adaptation. You get the promotion, and for a few weeks, there's a lift. Then your brain recalibrates, and the promotion becomes the new normal. You buy the house you dreamed of, and for a while, you feel it. Then you stop noticing. You fall in love, and the world rearranges itself around that person, and you think this feeling will last forever. Then the brain adapts, and love becomes familiar, and something in you starts wondering if there might be something more. This adaptation isn't a design flaw. It's actually a survival mechanism. If you felt the miracle of simply being alive every single moment, you'd never get anything done. You'd be paralyzed by wonder. The brain evolved to make the extraordinary ordinary so you could focus on threats and opportunities. It's a feature, not a bug. But it comes with a cost. The cost is that you stop seeing. You stop really seeing what's right in front of you. You stop seeing the people you love. You stop seeing your own life as the precious, temporary, unrepeatable phenomenon that it is. You start treating eternity like it's guaranteed and Tuesday like it's just another Tuesday. Siddhartha saw through this. Not because he was smarter than everyone else, though he was certainly intelligent. Not because he was more sensitive, though he may have been. He saw through it because he refused to look away. He refused to let his brain do its normalizing work on the big questions. He refused to file away the uncomfortable truths under, that's just how life is. When he saw an elderly person, he didn't think, that's sad, and move on. He thought, this will happen to me. This body, this mind, this sense of me that feels so solid and permanent, it's already aging, right now, in this moment, and nothing will stop it. When he saw a sick person, he didn't feel pity and walk away. He felt, this is not someone else's problem. This body is a guest house for illness. At any moment, the visitor could arrive. When he saw a corpse, he didn't think about funerals or grief or the circle of life. He thought, this is where every single striving, hoping, planning, wanting being ends up. Not as a punishment. Just as a fact. And when he saw a wandering monk, someone who had clearly looked at all of this and chosen a different relationship to it, something clicked. The monk wasn't happy because he had more. He had less. Almost nothing, by worldly standards. But he moved through the world with a quality Siddhartha hadn't seen in his palaces, freedom. Not freedom from difficulty, but freedom within difficulty. Not freedom from aging and sickness and death, but freedom from pretending those things don't apply to him. That image planted a seed. Not a seed of dissatisfaction with his life. A seed of curiosity about whether there might be another way to live within this life. Not to escape the human condition, but to finally, actually, truly inhabit it. Let me tell you a story about a man I'll call Michael. Michael was a climber. Not of mountains, though he did some of that too. Michael was a climber of ladders. Corporate ladders, social ladders, any ladder that promised a better view from the top. By the time he was 32, Michael had achieved what most people would call success. He was a vice president at a tech company. He had a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. He had a house in the right neighborhood, a car that made people look twice, and a social calendar full of events where the right people gathered. But Michael had a secret. The secret was that none of it felt like enough. Every promotion brought a few weeks of satisfaction, followed by a quiet voice asking, "What's next?" Every new possession brought a brief thrill, followed by adaptation. Every relationship brought initial excitement, followed by the slow realization that this person, however wonderful, couldn't fill the space inside him that felt somehow empty. Michael thought something was wrong with him. He read self-help books. He tried therapy. He experimented with meditation apps. He even took a sabbatical and traveled through Southeast Asia, visiting temples and sitting with monks, hoping that exposure to enlightenment might rub off on him. Nothing worked permanently. The climbing continued. The emptiness continued. The quiet voice continued. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of meetings and negotiations and corporate politics, Michael sat alone in his corner office as the sun set over the city. The sky turned orange and purple. The lights of the city began to flicker on. And Michael sat there, watching it all, feeling nothing. No, that's not quite accurate. He felt something. He felt tired. Not physically tired, mentally tired. Existentially tired. Tired of climbing. Tired of achieving. Tired of the endless cycle of wanting and getting and then wanting something else. And in that moment, a thought arose that had never occurred to him before. What if the problem isn't that I haven't reached the top yet? What if the problem is the climbing itself? What if the ladder I've been on my whole life isn't leading somewhere, it's just keeping me moving? Michael didn't have words for this insight at the time. He just sat there, watching the city darken, feeling something shift inside him. Not a solution. Not an answer. Just the beginning of a question he'd never allowed himself to ask. That question was the first crack in the wall. And cracks, as it turns out, are how the light gets in. If you're finding value in these reflections, please take a moment to subscribe to Monk's Temple. This channel exists because of listeners like you who want to explore these ancient teachings in a modern context. Subscribing helps more people find these conversations, and it lets us know that this work matters to you. Just click the subscribe button below. Thank you. Now, let's be clear about something. The Buddha wasn't trying to start a religion. That happened later, after he was gone, when well-meaning followers organized his teachings into systems and schools and traditions. The Buddha himself was less interested in building institutions and more interested in a single, direct question: why do human beings suffer, and is there a way out? That's it. That's the whole project. Not metaphysics. Not cosmology. Not debates about whether the universe is eternal or finite. Not speculation about what happens after death or whether the soul exists. All of those questions, he said, are like a man shot with a poisoned arrow who refuses treatment until he knows the cast of the archer, the type of wood in the arrow, the feathers used for the fletching. By the time he gets his answers, he's dead. The urgent matter is the arrow. The urgent matter is the suffering that's happening right now, in this moment, in your life, in your body, in your mind. Everything else can wait. So when we talk about what the Buddha saw, we're not talking about revealed truth handed down from on high. We're talking about observations any human being can make, verified by anyone willing to look carefully enough at their own experience. Think of him less as a prophet and more as a physician. A physician who diagnosed a condition, identified its cause, confirmed that it could be treated, and prescribed a course of treatment. That's the Four Noble Truths in a nutshell. 1. There is a condition. 2. It has a cause. 3. The cause can be addressed. 4. Here's how. Everything else is commentary. Let's talk about the condition. The Pali word is dukkha. And we have to be careful here, because the usual translation, suffering, is both right and misleading. Right because dukkha includes suffering. Physical pain, emotional anguish, grief, loss, illness, death, all of that is dukkha. Misleading because dukkha also includes much subtler experiences. The background hum of dissatisfaction we talked about earlier. The sense that something's not quite right even when everything seems fine. The way pleasure always carries within it the seed of its own disappearance. The anxiety that lurks beneath even our happiest moments, knowing they won't last. The Buddha used an image that captures this well. Imagine a wheel with an axle that's slightly off-center. The wheel turns. It functions. You can even ride on it for a while. But there's always a wobble. Always a little friction. Always a subtle unevenness that never quite smooths out. That wobble is dukkha. It's not that life is nothing but pain. That's not the teaching. The teaching is that life, as ordinarily lived, never fully settles. There's always something slightly off. You get what you want, and the wanting shifts to something else. You avoid what you don't want, and the fear of it returning stays. You find love, and the fear of losing it arrives right alongside the love. You achieve peace, and the mind starts worrying about how to keep it. The wobble is always there. Modern psychology has a name for part of this, the hedonic treadmill. Research shows that lottery winners and accident victims, within a year or two, return to roughly their baseline level of happiness. Big positive events give a temporary boost. Big negative events give a temporary drop. Then the baseline reasserts itself. The Buddha observed this 25 centuries ago, but he went further. He noticed that the baseline itself is the issue. That the treadmill isn't a bug, it's how the system is designed when it's running on automatic. That the mind's constant reaching, grasping, wanting, and avoiding is what keeps the wobble alive. And here's the crucial insight: the problem isn't that you're on the wrong treadmill, or that you're not running fast enough, or that you haven't found the right one. The problem is that you're on a treadmill at all. Let me tell you about Elena. Elena had a plan. A beautiful, detailed, carefully constructed plan for her life. By 25, graduate school completed. By 28, established in her career. By 30, married to the right person. By 32, first child. By 34, second child. By 40, financial independence. By 50, early retirement and the freedom to travel. The plan was beautiful. The execution was flawless. Elena checked every box right on schedule. By 32, she had the career, the husband, the first child, and a house in a neighborhood with good schools. By 34, the second child arrived, right on cue. By 40, she and her husband had achieved the financial targets they'd set in their 20s. By every external measure, Elena had built exactly the life she'd intended to build. And by 42, she found herself sitting in her car in the driveway, unable to go inside, crying for reasons she couldn't explain. Not because anything was wrong. Nothing was wrong. The kids were healthy. The marriage was stable. The career was satisfying. The finances were secure. Everything was exactly as she'd planned. And that was the problem. Everything was exactly as she'd planned, and she felt empty. Not depressed, exactly. Not unhappy, exactly. Just hollow. Like she'd spent 20 years building a house, moved in, and discovered that no one was home. Elena didn't know what to do with this feeling. It didn't fit the narrative. She was supposed to be happy. She'd done everything right. She'd followed the script. This wasn't how the story was supposed to go. She started doing what many of us do when the plan fails to deliver. She made a new plan. Maybe the problem was the house. They could renovate. Maybe the problem was her appearance. She joined a gym and started a strict diet. Maybe the problem was her marriage. She and her husband began date nights and weekend getaways. Maybe the problem was her career. She explored new opportunities, new challenges, new mountains to climb. Each change brought a temporary lift. Then the feeling returned. The hollow. The emptiness. The quiet question, is this all there is? Elena's story isn't about failure. It's about success that failed to deliver what it promised. It's about a life built exactly according to specifications that turned out to be the wrong specifications. It's about the discovery that getting everything you want isn't the same as wanting what you get. And it's about the moment when the plan meets the wobble, and the wobble wins. So what causes the wobble? The Buddha's answer was precise, and it's often misunderstood. He said the cause is craving. Tanha in Pali. But craving here doesn't just mean wanting things. If the problem were simply wanting, the solution would be to stop wanting anything, to become a kind of living statue, numb and indifferent. That's not what the Buddha taught. He explicitly rejected that path after trying it himself for 6 years. Craving, in this context, is something more specific. It's the mind's tendency to grasp at experience, to try to hold on to what's pleasant, to push away what's unpleasant, and to zone out when experience is neutral. Think of it like this: experience arises constantly. Sounds, sensations, thoughts, emotions, perceptions, a river of phenomena flowing through your awareness moment after moment. Some of it you like. Some of it you don't. Some of it you barely notice. Craving is what happens when you try to stop the river. When you have a pleasant experience, a compliment, a beautiful sunset, a moment of connection with someone you love, something in you says, I want this to stay. I want more of this. I want to hold on to this forever. That's craving. When you have an unpleasant experience, criticism, physical pain, rejection, boredom, something in you says, make this stop. Get this away from me. I don't want to feel this. That's also craving. It's the same energy, just pointing in a different direction. And when you have a neutral experience, waiting in line, doing dishes, sitting in traffic, something in you says, this is boring. Let me check my phone. Let me think about something else. Let me escape into fantasy or planning or memory. That's craving too, craving for stimulation, for distraction, for anything other than this moment as it is. The problem isn't that you have preferences. Preferences are natural. The problem is that you fight reality when reality doesn't match your preferences. You demand that the river stop flowing in the direction it's flowing. You demand that pleasant things last forever, that unpleasant things disappear immediately, that neutral things entertain you. And the river doesn't care about your demands. It keeps flowing. That mismatch, between what is and what you demand, that's the wobble. That's dukkha. David noticed something about himself that he didn't like. Whenever he had a free moment, waiting for coffee, sitting in a waiting room, standing in line, even just walking from his car to the office, his hand would reach for his phone. Not because he needed it. Not because there was anything important to check. Just because the moment felt empty, and the phone promised to fill it. He started paying attention to this habit. Just watching it, without judgment at first. And what he noticed surprised him. The discomfort wasn't in the empty moment itself. The empty moment was just empty. Neutral. Nothing special. The discomfort arose when he interpreted the emptiness as a problem. When he decided that this moment needed to be filled. When he reached for the phone to escape the bare experience of being alive with nothing to do. One day, he experimented. He stood in line at the grocery store, phone in his pocket, and just stood. Felt his feet on the floor. Noticed the air on his skin. Heard the sounds around him, the beep of the scanner, the murmur of conversation, the hum of the refrigerator case. Watched his breath move in and out. For the first 30 seconds, it felt strange. Uncomfortable almost. Like he was doing something wrong. Then something shifted. The discomfort softened. The moment opened up. He realized he'd been living his life in a state of constant low-grade escape. Always fleeing the present moment into some distraction, some stimulation, some future plan or past memory. Always treating now as something to get through on the way to then. He wasn't depressed. He wasn't anxious. He was just absent. Living his life on autopilot, reaching for the phone every time reality showed up empty-handed. David's experiment didn't change his life overnight. He still uses his phone. He still gets distracted. But now he knows something he didn't know before. That the urge to escape the present moment isn't a solution to discomfort. It's the cause of it. The discomfort of waiting isn't in the waiting. It's in the resistance to waiting. The discomfort of boredom isn't in the boredom. It's in the demand that life always be interesting. The discomfort of emptiness isn't in the emptiness. It's in the belief that emptiness is a problem to be solved rather than an experience to be felt. The Buddha didn't stop at craving. He went deeper. Beneath craving, he said, there's something even more fundamental. Something that makes craving possible in the first place. He called it avijja, usually translated as ignorance. But this isn't ignorance in the sense of not knowing facts. It's not that you lack information about the world. It's that you see the world in a way that's systematically distorted, and you don't know you're doing it. Imagine wearing tinted glasses from birth. Blue-tinted glasses. You've never seen the world without them. You don't know the glasses are there. You think the sky is blue because that's its color, not because you're seeing it through a filter. Everything you see has a blue tinge, but since you've never experienced anything else, you don't know the tinge exists. Avijja is like that. You see things that are impermanent, your body, your relationships, your possessions, your thoughts, your emotions, your very sense of self, and you perceive them as permanent. Not because you consciously believe they'll last forever, but because you act as if they will. You make 10-year plans as if death doesn't exist. You hold on to people as if they'll never leave. You protect your reputation as if it will matter 1,000 years from now. You act, moment to moment, as if the solid world you perceive is actually solid. You see things that are incapable of providing lasting satisfaction, sensory pleasures, achievements, possessions, relationships. And you perceive them as sources of lasting fulfillment. Not because you've never been disappointed, but because each new pleasure comes with a promise, this time will be different. This time, this thing, this person, this achievement will finally fill the hole. And each time, the promise fails. And each time, you forget. And you reach again. You see things that are not self, that is, things that arise and pass away according to conditions, not according to your will. And you perceive them as you, as yours, as who you are. Your body changes without your permission, and you call it me. Your thoughts arise unbidden, and you call them mine. Your emotions shift unpredictably, and you identify with them completely. You build an identity out of phenomena that are constantly in flux, and then you suffer when the flux inevitably carries them away. This triple distortion, seeing permanence in the impermanent, satisfaction in the unsatisfactory, self in what's not self, is the root. It's the tint in the glasses. It's the filter you don't know you're wearing. And the good news is, filters can be removed. Glasses can be taken off. Distortions can be seen through. Not by acquiring new beliefs. Not by replacing one set of ideas with another. But by looking directly at your experience, clearly enough and steadily enough, until the distortion reveals itself. Until you see the tint as tint. Until you know, not as a belief but as a direct perception, that what you've been calling solid is actually fluid, what you've been calling permanent is actually passing, what you've been calling self is actually a process, not a thing. That direct perception is vijja. Clear knowing. The end of ignorance. And when ignorance ends, craving has nothing to stand on. It collapses on its own, like a plant pulled from the soil. Not because you've suppressed it. Not because you've fought it. But because you've seen through the confusion that made it possible. Marcus was a collector. Not of anything unusual. Just things. Books he might read someday. Clothes he might wear again. Gadgets that promise to make life easier. Papers he might need later. Gifts he'd received and felt guilty about donating. Kitchen appliances used once and forgotten. The collection grew slowly, then faster, then filled his apartment to the point where walking through required navigation. Surfaces disappeared under stacks. Closets bulged. The spare bedroom became unusable. Marcus knew he had a problem. He'd watched shows about hoarding. He'd read articles about minimalism. He'd made resolutions to declutter, multiple times, with multiple plans. Nothing stuck. The stuff stayed. One weekend, a friend came over and gently asked a question that Marcus had never considered. What are you afraid would happen if you let this go? Marcus opened his mouth to answer and realized he didn't know. He'd never asked himself that question. He'd only thought about the stuff, how to organize it, how to reduce it, how to manage it. He'd never thought about what the stuff was doing for him. What need it was meeting. What fear it was soothing. That night, he sat with the question. Not trying to answer it. Just holding it, like a strange object he'd found and didn't yet understand. And slowly, something emerged. The stuff wasn't the problem. The stuff was a symptom. Beneath the accumulation was a fear of emptiness. A belief that if the space around him was empty, something terrible would happen. That the emptiness would leak into him. That he'd disappear into the void. He'd been filling his apartment to avoid feeling empty inside. The external clutter was a mirror of an internal clutter he'd never examined. This is where the Buddhist teaching gets personal. Marcus wasn't a Buddhist. He'd never read a sutra. But he'd stumbled into the heart of the matter. The external grasping was a reflection of internal confusion. The inability to let go of things was connected to an inability to be with emptiness. And the emptiness itself, the very thing he was fleeing, wasn't the enemy. It was just space. Neutral. Neither good nor bad. Only threatening because of what he'd projected onto it. Marcus didn't declutter overnight. But something shifted. The project became less about managing stuff and more about investigating fear. Less about organizing objects and more about understanding himself. The stuff was still there. But now he saw it differently. Not as a problem to solve, but as a clue to follow. And following clues, it turns out, is how you find your way out of the maze. Let's talk about impermanence. Anicca. Most people hear this word and think, nothing lasts. Everything falls apart. All is loss. And that's true, as far as it goes. But it's only half the picture. It's like describing water only as something that can drown you, forgetting that it's also something you can drink, bathe in, float on, and swim through. Impermanence is not the enemy. Impermanence is the condition that makes anything good possible at all. Think about it. If things didn't change, a seed could never become a tree. A wound could never heal. A mistake could never be learned from. A relationship could never deepen. A moment of pain could never pass. A moment of joy could never arise. Night could never become morning. Winter could never become spring. Impermanence isn't destruction. It's transformation. It's the universe's way of keeping things moving, keeping things fresh, keeping things possible. The problem isn't that things change. The problem is that we demand they don't. We want the good moments to freeze. We want the people we love to stay exactly as they are. We want our bodies to stop aging. We want our achievements to remain impressive forever. We want security in a universe whose fundamental law is flux. And every time reality violates that demand, which is constantly, continuously, without exception, we suffer. Not because change is suffering, but because resistance to change is suffering. Here's a different way to see it. Imagine a river. The river flows. That's what rivers do. If you stand on the bank and watch, you might think, I wish this river would stop flowing so I could really see it. But if the river stopped flowing, it wouldn't be a river anymore. It would be a pond. And eventually, a stagnant puddle. And eventually, dry mud. The river's riverness is its flow. Its identity is its impermanence. The water molecules you see now will be miles downstream in an hour. The river is not a thing that changes, the river is change itself, taking a recognizable form for a while. You are like that. Not a thing that changes. Change itself, taking a recognizable form for a while. The body you had 10 years ago is gone, replaced cell by cell. The mind you had 10 years ago is gone, replaced thought by thought, experience by experience. The you reading these words is not the same you who began this sentence. Something has already shifted. Something is always shifting. This isn't a tragedy. It's just a fact. And facts, when seen clearly, lose their power to terrify. The fear of impermanence is really the fear of something that's already happening, already always happening. When you see that, really see it, the fear softens. Not because impermanence stops, but because resistance stops. Grace's mother died in the spring. The grief was expected. What wasn't expected was what happened when Grace started going through her mother's things. Boxes of photographs, mostly. Decades of family history captured in images stretching back to black and white portraits of people Grace had never met. She spent weeks sorting through them. Organizing by year, by event, by person. Creating piles for herself, for her siblings, for cousins who might want copies. It was exhausting, emotionally and physically. But she couldn't stop. Something kept her going, kept her sorting, kept her holding on to each image as if letting it go would mean losing the person all over again. One evening, her teenage daughter walked in and found her surrounded by photographs, crying. "What's wrong, Mom?" Grace tried to explain. About losing her mother. About all these memories. About how nothing lasts, how everything slips away, how even photographs are just shadows of moments that will never come again. Her daughter listened. Then she picked up a photograph at random, a picture of Grace as a child, maybe 6 years old, laughing at something off camera. "Mom," she said, "look at this girl. She's happy. Really happy." Not because she knew this moment would last forever. Just because it was happening. She wasn't thinking about losing it. She was just in it. Grace looked at the photograph. At her own 6-year-old face, frozen in laughter. And something shifted. The girl in the photo wasn't worried about impermanence. She wasn't grieving future losses. She wasn't holding on to the moment, she was inhabiting it. The joy wasn't in the moment lasting. The joy was in the moment happening at all. Grace realized she'd been approaching the photographs backwards. She'd been using them to hold on to something that was already gone. To freeze a river that had long since flowed to the sea. To demand that the past remain present. The photographs weren't for holding on. They were for remembering that holding on was never the point. The point was being there, fully, while it was happening. The point was laughing without thinking about whether the laughter would last. The point was loving without calculating the cost of loss. She still has the photographs. But now she sees them differently. Not as anchors holding her to the past, but as reminders that the past, like the present, like the future, is only ever experienced in one moment, this one. And in this moment, right now, something is happening. Something real. Something that will eventually become a photograph in someone else's memory. The question isn't whether it will last. The question is whether you're here for it. Now we arrive at the most misunderstood teaching in all of Buddhism. The one that sounds like nihilism but points toward freedom. The one that people hear and think, if there's no self, then who's listening to this? Who's trying to understand? Who's going to be enlightened? Anatta. Not self. Let's be clear about what this doesn't mean. It doesn't mean you don't exist. You're clearly here. You're clearly experiencing something. There's awareness, there's sensation, there's thought, there's perception, there's consciousness. Something is happening. That something is undeniable. What the Buddha questioned is whether that something is a thing. A fixed, solid, permanent entity that you can call me in any ultimate sense. Look at your own experience for a moment. Notice your body. Feel the sensations present right now, the weight of your body on the chair or floor, the temperature of the air on your skin, any subtle aches or pleasures. Is this body permanent? Is it solid? Is it under your control? Can you command it to stop aging, stop hurting, stop changing? No. The body does what bodies do, according to conditions, not according to your will. You're along for the ride. Notice your feelings. Not emotions. The Buddhist term covers both pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral tones of experience. Right now, is there pleasure somewhere? Discomfort? Neutrality? Notice how these shift moment by moment. Can you control them? Can you decide to feel only pleasant sensations forever? No. Feelings arise and pass according to conditions. You're not the author. Notice your perceptions. The way you recognize things, label them, categorize them. This is a voice, that's a thought, here's a memory. Can you stop perceiving? Can you turn off recognition? No. Perceptions keep happening. Notice your thoughts. The mental activity streaming through awareness. Plans, memories, judgments, fantasies, commentary. Can you stop thinking? Try it for 5 seconds. The thought, "I'm trying to stop thinking," is itself a thought. The mind thinks. That's what it does. You're not the thinker, you're the space in which thinking happens. Notice consciousness itself. The knowing quality that's aware of all of the above. Does this have a shape? A location? A boundary? Can you find where it begins and ends? Can you grab hold of it? No. Consciousness is like space, it contains everything, but nothing contains it. The Buddha's point was simple. If you look for a self, a fixed, solid, permanent you behind all this activity, you won't find one. You'll find processes. Flowing, changing, conditioned processes. Body processes, feeling processes, perception processes, thought processes, consciousness processes. But no owner of the processes. No self behind the scenes pulling strings. This isn't a philosophy to believe. It's an observation to verify. Look for yourself. See if you can find anything that qualifies as a permanent, unchanging self. Not a concept of self. Not a feeling of self. Not a story about self. But an actual, findable entity. What you'll likely discover is what the Buddha discovered: there's experience happening, but no experiencer behind it. There's seeing, but no seer. There's hearing, but no hearer. There's thinking, but no thinker. Just the play of phenomena, arising and passing, conditioned and conditioning. And here's the liberating part: if there's no self to protect, no self to defend, no self to promote, no self to worry about, then what happens to fear? What happens to anxiety? What happens to the constant low-grade tension of maintaining an identity? It loosens. Not because you've talked yourself into something, but because you've seen through something. The thing you were protecting was never there. The fortress was built on empty ground. The enemy at the gates was guarding an empty room. James was an actor. A good one. He'd spent 20 years building a career on stage and screen, playing characters, inhabiting roles, becoming other people for a living. He was good at it because he understood something essential. To play a character convincingly, you have to forget, for a while, that you're playing. You have to let the role take over. You have to become, temporarily, someone else. But James had a problem. Off stage, off camera, he wasn't sure who was left. He'd spent so long becoming other people that the person he was supposed to be when the performance ended felt thin. Insufficient. Like a costume he'd outgrown but had nothing to replace it with. He tried therapy. He tried meditation. He tried spiritual retreats. He tried relationships. Nothing filled the void. Nothing told him who he really was. One night, after a particularly intense performance, he sat alone in his dressing room, still in costume, still half in character, staring at himself in the mirror. And for a moment, something strange happened. The face in the mirror was his, but not his. It was the character's face, wearing his features. And behind that, there was another layer, the face he wore for interviews, for public appearances. And behind that, another, the face he wore with friends. And behind that, another. The face he wore with family. And behind that, another, the face he wore when completely alone, the one he thought was real. But as he sat there, watching these layers, he realized something. Each face was a performance. Each identity was a role. Even the real one, the private one, was just another character he'd learned to play. A character called James when no one's watching. And behind all the performances, behind all the roles, behind all the faces, what was there? Nothing. Not nothing in the sense of absence. Nothing in the sense of space. Open, aware, present space. The space in which all performances happen. The stage, not the actor. The screen, not the movie. James didn't have a mystical experience. He didn't become enlightened. But something shifted. The question, who am I really, stopped feeling urgent. It started feeling irrelevant. Like asking a river which drop is the real one. Like asking a flame which flicker is its true self. He still acts. He still plays roles, on stage and off. But now he knows something he didn't know before, the roles aren't the problem. Forgetting their roles, that's the problem. Believing that any of them is the final, ultimate, real you, that's where the suffering lies. The freedom isn't in finding the real you. The freedom is in seeing that the search was based on a mistake. The Buddha used an image that's both simple and profound, the wheel. Not as a symbol of progress or forward movement. A wheel turning in place. Going nowhere. Repeating the same motion endlessly. This is samsara, the cycle of existence that continues as long as the causes remain in place. Not a place you go after death. Not a realm you're trapped in by external forces. A pattern that repeats itself moment to moment, lifetime to lifetime, as long as ignorance and craving keep the wheel turning. You can see this wheel in your own life right now. Notice how certain patterns repeat. Maybe you get angry in the same way, at the same kinds of triggers, over and over. Maybe you fall into the same relationship dynamics, attracted to the same type of person, struggling with the same issues, ending in the same way. Maybe you make resolutions to change, follow them for a while, then slip back into old habits. Maybe you achieve a goal, feel satisfied briefly, then find yourself reaching for the next one, the next achievement, the next validation. Round and round. Same patterns, different details. Same will, different scenery. The Buddha wasn't moralizing about this. He wasn't saying you're bad for repeating patterns. He was simply describing how conditioned existence works. When causes are present, effects follow. When ignorance is present, you misperceive reality. When you misperceive reality, you crave and grasp. When you crave and grasp, you create the conditions for more becoming, more existence, more cycling. The wheel turns on its own. No one is pushing it. No one is trapped by it except in the sense that a habit traps you, by repetition, by momentum, by the illusion that this is just how things are. But here's the crucial point, the wheel can stop. Not by force. Not by willpower. Not by wishing. But by addressing the causes. When ignorance is replaced by clear seeing, the misperception ends. When the misperception ends, craving has nothing to stand on. When craving ends, the grasping stops. When the grasping stops, the fuel runs out. And the wheel, having nothing to sustain it, stops turning. Not because you've escaped existence. Because you've seen through the confusion that made existence feel like a trap. Anita noticed something about her relationships. They followed a pattern. A predictable, almost scripted pattern that she'd lived through at least 4 times with 4 different partners. Stage 1, meeting. Excitement. The thrill of discovery. The sense that this person might be different, might finally understand her, might be the one she'd been waiting for. Stage 2, deepening. Intimacy. Vulnerability. Sharing the parts of herself she usually kept hidden. Feeling seen, maybe for the first time. Stage 3, friction. Small disagreements that grew into larger patterns. Needs that weren't being met. Expectations that clashed. The gradual realization that this person, however wonderful, was not going to complete her. Stage 4, ending. Sometimes dramatic, sometimes quiet. Always painful. Always accompanied by the same thought, why does this keep happening? After the 4th relationship ended, Anita did something she hadn't done before. Instead of immediately diving into the next one, instead of looking for the next person who might be different, she sat with the pattern itself. She examined it like a scientist examining a specimen. Not judging, not blaming, just observing. And what she saw surprised her. The pattern wasn't about the partners. They changed, but the pattern stayed the same. Which meant the pattern was coming from somewhere inside her. Some expectation, some belief, some way of relating that she carried from relationship to relationship, recreating the same dynamic with different people. She traced it back. Back through the relationships. Back through her childhood. Back to a belief she'd absorbed without knowing it. That love meant someone else completing her. That she was somehow incomplete on her own. That the right person would fill the hole she felt inside. This belief wasn't true. She could see that now. But it had been running her life for decades, hidden beneath the surface, invisible because she'd never thought to look for it. The hole she'd been trying to fill with partners wasn't a hole that partners could fill. It wasn't even really a hole. It was a misperception. A belief in lack that created the experience of lack. A demand that someone else provide what only she could provide, the sense of wholeness that comes from no longer needing to be completed. Anita didn't swear off relationships. She didn't become a nun. But something shifted. The desperate search for the one who would finally make her feel whole, softened. Not because she'd found that person. Because she'd stopped believing that such a person existed. And in that softening, something unexpected happened. She started relating to people differently. Less grasping, more presence. Less demand, more appreciation. Less fear of loss, more capacity for genuine connection. The wheel, for a moment, stopped turning. The Buddha called the stopping of the wheel nibbana. The word means extinguishing, like a flame going out when its fuel is exhausted. This image is important. When a flame goes out, where does it go? Does it travel somewhere else? Does it enter a different state? Does it cease to exist? None of those questions quite fit. The flame was never a thing, it was a process, sustained by fuel. When the fuel runs out, the process stops. That's all. Nibbana is like that. It's not a place you go. It's not a state you enter. It's not annihilation and it's not eternal life. It's the ending of the causes that kept the wheel turning. It's freedom from the conditions that kept you cycling. The Buddha described it in negative terms because language can only point toward it. He called it the unborn, the unbecome, the unmade, the unconditioned. Not because it's nothing, but because it's not anything. It's outside the whole framework of conditioned existence. It's what's left when the causes of suffering have been seen through and released. But here's what matters for you, right now, in this moment. Nibbana isn't just a distant goal. It's a direction. It's what happens, in small ways, whenever the wheel stops turning for even a moment. Whenever you see clearly and the grasping relaxes. Whenever you touch the unconditioned within the conditioned. That moment of peace when you stop arguing with reality. That's a taste. That moment of release when you let go of a grudge you've been carrying. That's a taste. That moment of openness when you realize you don't have to defend your identity. That's a taste. These aren't the full thing. They're glimpses. But glimpses matter. They show you that freedom is possible. They show you that the wheel doesn't have to turn forever. They show you that what the Buddha pointed to isn't a fantasy, it's an actual possibility, accessible in ways both small and profound. Robert went on a retreat. Not a Buddhist retreat, just a week alone at a cabin by a lake. No phone, no computer, no television. Just himself and the water and the trees. The first 2 days were hard. His mind raced. He thought about work, about relationships, about things he should have done differently, about things he needed to do when he got back. He felt restless, bored, anxious. He checked his phone multiple times before remembering it had no signal. By the third day, something shifted. The mind slowed down. The constant internal commentary softened. He started noticing things he hadn't noticed before. The way light moved across the lake, the sounds of birds at different times of day, the feeling of his own breath moving in and out without him having to do anything. By the fourth day, he had an experience he still struggles to describe. He was sitting on the dock, watching the water. The lake was perfectly still, reflecting the sky and trees like a mirror. And for a moment, the boundary between himself and everything else seemed to blur. Not disappear entirely, but soften. He wasn't just looking at the lake. He was part of the scene. The lake wasn't just water. It was part of him. The distinction between observer and observed felt arbitrary. Like a line drawn on water. The moment passed. The boundaries returned. He was Robert again, sitting on a dock, looking at a lake. But something had changed. He knew, now, that the boundaries weren't as solid as they seemed. That the sense of being a separate self, looking out at a separate world, was more like a habit than a fact. That beneath the habit, there was something else, something connected, something open, something free. Robert didn't become a Buddhist. He didn't start meditating daily. But he carried something back from that lake. A memory, not just of a place, but of a way of being. A reminder that the self he usually took himself to be wasn't the whole story. That peace wasn't something to achieve, it was something to uncover. That the lake was still there, inside him, whenever he remembered to look. Thank you for spending this time with Monk's Temple. If these reflections have touched something in you, if you felt even a moment of recognition, even a glimpse of what's being pointed to, then the time has been well spent. Not because you've acquired new information, but because you've remembered something you always knew but had forgotten. The path continues. The practice continues. The invitation remains open. Come back anytime. The breath is always here. The present moment is always waiting. The freedom you seek is seeking you, in every moment, in every breath, in every ordinary experience of this extraordinary life. Until next time, take care of yourself. Be kind when you can. Pay attention when you remember. And when you forget, as you will, just notice. And begin again.